What's going on, guys? It is Andrew here, and welcome back to another ARK information video. Now, I would only assume that this is going to be the last ARK information video because the game is coming out June 2nd or next week, and I'm so freaking excited. And they posted another ARK digest with more information about the game, so I'm going to go ahead and cover everything there is to know, give you guys my thoughts on it, just like we did with the last two previous ARK information videos. So let's get right into the video. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you do, remember to smash that like button. Thank you, guys. So the first person asks, could you give me a rundown of what is the normal thing to do for our first few hours in the game? Studio Wildcard, the developers of this game, answered with, this is a great question, and to be honest, there's a lot of potential to what you can do when you first pop in. First things first, you get in, and here's where you make your decision. Do you want to stay in this area, potentially inhabited by other survivors, or do you want to make for the hills and begin your life in the ARK elsewhere? If you choose option 1, we advise that you do take a few moments to look at your surroundings. What is nearby? Who is nearby? Do you see the opportunity to attack anyone? You are only equipped with your hands. Obviously, when you spawn, they're great tools. Not only can you use them to knock out players and potentially steal their gear, but you can also use them as a way of gathering resources. Walking up to trees and punching them will allow you to collect the thatch and wood, which is necessarily the first tool you plan to make. If instead you see a person, well, you might just be in luck. Consider using the prone or crouch to sneak up to them, making minimal noise, and smack them. If you successfully manage to take them out by sneaking, hopefully you'll be rewarded with plenty of gear. If you die, well, I mean, being sneaky isn't for everyone, and there are other options available to you. Now back to gathering. After you collect the necessary resources for making a tool, you'll quickly progress throughout the early game. You'll start to gain resources more efficiently and in large numbers. Decide on how you want to stat up your character and where you want to spend your first engram points. Picking up the first set of engrams is very recommended, as you'll want to at least have the bare necessities before you begin specializing. Soon you'll find that you'll be able to successfully craft better tools, weapons, campfires, and clothing. This begins your journey on the ARK and is the first step of survival. Remember, whilst all this is going on, you need to ensure that your character is well hydrated and fed. You can do this by picking berries off of bushes, submerging deep into the water, and or killing dinosaurs for their meat, as well as collecting their hide to make a water skin, obviously to collect water for your hydration. Now you've done the basics, and you'll manage this very quickly. It is time to move on and look for a place where you'd like to build. You want to get a house set up as soon as possible for protection from other survivors, the dinosaurs, and the ARK, which can be very unforgiving to those who are unprepared. After you've set up your first base, with some storage options and a place to sleep, you may want to consider how you plan to specialize. Do you want to be a survivor who wants to hunt and tame beasts? Are you someone who prefers building grand villages? Do you want to explore and travel across the ARK? There are plenty of paths you can take on your life, and the way you specialize will determine how effective you are in those roles. So there we go. One thing I really love about Studio Wildcard is they're very transparent. They hold nothing back. They give you, like a step-by-step, here's what our game's going to be like. When they showed the trailer, everything from the trailer was in the game. I love that about them. I love how they're very open about, everything that's going on, and they're not kind of secretive like, oh, you're going to have to see when you buy the game kind of thing. I love how they, they specifically say stuff like this. A little bit later into this video, you'll see that they get into breaking down the classes and how those work, and it's very, very interesting, and I really love that about them. So the next question is, because dinosaurs fight with each other, if two fight and one loses, will we find it dead on the ground to harvest things from? Is it possible that a dinosaur can get knocked out by another dinosaur to make things easily tameable? And the answer is, this is something that we have focused on very early on. We want our ecosystem to interact with one another. They'll fight each other. They'll get involved in battles occurring between different dinosaurs. If aggravated, you can surely expect to see some dead carcasses across the ARK. As for taming an already knocked out dinosaur, if it wasn't knocked out by a person, you can be sure to have the ability to tame it for yourself. Some dinosaurs will apply torpidity with their attacks, such as the Pulmonoscorpius, which is the scorpion. There may be occasions when they've left an unconscious body untouched due to chasing something else or being killed themselves. So this is a very interesting one. It means that, for example, a dinosaur that you would not maybe be able to kill on your own, like a T-Rex, and another T-Rex start killing each other. First of all, amazing battle to watch. Yes, let me watch two T-Rexes trying to kill each other. But if it kills it and it walks away, you can then sneak in, harvest it for, its meat, its bones, its skin, all the things you would you're going to need to get to survive, for weapons, for food, you know, for armor and stuff like that, that you wouldn't have been able to get if the two T-Rexes weren't killing each other, for example. Or you could just have a T-Rex going through and killing all the, you know, Utah Raptors and Velociraptors and stuff, and you could just harvest those as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how the ecosystem kind of interacts with each other. So this was already covered in the last video we did, but they're going a little bit more in depth here, and it says, will ARK support mod makers for the PC? Now, we already know the answer is yes, but here's Studio Wildcard's answer. They said yes, without a doubt. We are all gamers at Studio Wildcard. We love making games and we love playing games. We'll be providing complete support to mod makers when early access launches. We will release our source code, our editor, which uses Unreal Engine 4, as well as all the assets necessary. We're looking forward to seeing what you guys make. So this is very, very rare. Very, very little developers do this, and the reason why they don't isn't because they're greedy. It's because source code is an expensive thing. You pay programmers a lot of money, and a lot of times they're coming up with these really cool systems like artificial intelligence and you know, like inventory systems, which obviously aren't as complicated, but you know, lots of programming and code. And Studio Wildcard is essentially saying, here's our source code, this is everything, this is all of our code, take a look at it, modify it if you want to, and come up with awesome things. And for that, they earn my utmost respect, and I'm sure all of your respect as well. That's amazing, and I can't wait to see what people do with the mods for ARK. So the next question is, will it be possible to ride a Brontosaurus in the water? Will a Brontosaurus steps break barricades, walls, doors, etc.? The answer is, all the land creatures of ARK are able to swim, however, they're not very effective. They can swim slower than they travel on land, and you have to keep in mind that there's stamina and an oxygen stat. So if your dinosaur runs out of stamina or oxygen while swimming, you risk it traveling incredibly slow and drowning or suffocating to death. Keep in mind that some land creatures are better at swimming than others, such as the carbonemes, and other amphibians or amphibious do not require as much oxygen. As for whether the Brontosaurus will break structures, you can definitely see that happening. They're passive creatures, but if your house is in the way, well, they don't care. They'll be sure to step over it, but be careful as you have any dinosaurs nearby who have been set to neutral, or maybe even inside the structure. You'll risk them fighting, and most often the Brontosaurus will probably crush anything that picks a fight with it, which makes perfect sense, and that's awesome. All right, now this next question takes up probably as much time as all the other questions. Now the question is, could you please dive more into the skill tree? Specifically, what attributes will there be to level up? Now, Studio Wildcard gives a very lengthy and, like I said, fully transparent look into the way that this works and the way that it's going to work when the game releases on June 2nd. So let's dive into the skill tree and how this is going to work, because this is something that I specifically, and I know a lot of people have asked about. You know, sometimes skill trees in games don't exactly work, but for example, in ARK, I think that it really will. So let's take a look into it and see how it will. So they said, this has been asked a lot, so I guess it's time for us to share some details. As you level up via playing the game, you gain stat points and engram points. You'll be giving one stat per level and an engram points which scale per level. This is the key part of ARK Survival Evolved, as what you spend these points determines what role you will play. The stats you have available to you are as follows: health, stamina, oxygen, food, water, weight, melee damage, movement speed, fortitude, crafting speed, and torpor. Health. This is one of the core stats that you see in many games. It determines your life value. If this hits 0, your character is dead. When you reach below 25%, your character becomes injured. You have to regenerate your health using food, blood packs, or natural regeneration to regain normal functionality. Stamina. This is another key trait used in many games. It is generally used to determine how much energy your character has. Eating and drinking certain food will help replenish stamina. As you find yourself playing the game, you'll see the bar plummet, especially when working tirelessly. So if you're always chopping trees or sprinting, you'll take time to regenerate. Oxygen. This is an uncommon trait you won't see in many games. Rivers, lagoons, underwater pools, and the ocean play a huge part in ARK. It's often a place of sanctuary or potentially a place of danger. There are times you'll find yourself diving to the bottom of a pool, riding on an aquatic friend, or swimming across to escape a deadly predator, only to find yourself in the mouth of another. Increasing oxygen allows you to stay submerged for longer periods of time. I couldn't help but smile like 4 times reading the little situations they gave you there, like... especially when it says only to find yourself in the mouth of another. Like, that's scary and super exciting. I don't think a game's ever made me this excited with the possibilities that the game could present itself, really. Food. This is a stat you'll find in pretty much every other survival game. Simply put, it tells you if your character is hungry. Ensure that you're well fed, otherwise you risk starvation. Increasing the amount allows for your character to eat more, therefore you'll have more time available to you in between meals. Pretty basic and straightforward. Water. This is a stat that you'll find in pretty much every other survival game. Water is something that you'll need to be monitored if you're thirsty and find yourself suffering from dehydration. Of course. Weight. This is something that's the core to the game. Unlike many other survival games that are primarily slot-based when it comes to inventory, ARK is not. ARK is a weight-based game. This means you can hold as many materials as you like, as long as you have the weight to withstand it. Weight is a very useful stat, though something to keep in mind is that the more you carry, the slower you run, and the lower you jump. When you reach a certain level of weight, you become encumbered and you will find yourself unable to do much. Melee damage. This is just as the name states. There are going to be plenty of weapon options in the game, and normal circumstances dictate that the range that has an advantage. If you deal a lot of damage, you can avoid taking it. That's the most common way that survivors choose to fight. However, we've introduced a melee damage stat to give players the opportunity to consider using it as a fighting option. So being able to make yourself stronger, of course, but then you won't have as much points to spend on other things that might be useful, like, let's say, food, crafting speed, fortitude, etc., etc. So I really love the idea of having a skill tree, because you'll see a bunch of different types of characters. People might find a way to abuse the system, like just jack their melee damage up and go around one-hitting people, but I'm sure Studio Wildcards thought of that, and they probably have a counter option to that. So movement speed. This is another key stat to the game. It's used to determine how quickly a survivor can travel by foot. It's very useful in terms of escaping, hunting, in fact, just about everything. It has a great synergy with stamina. Right, if you jack up your stamina and your movement speed, you'd be like Usain Bolt running around, probably. Fortitude. This is a very useful stat that not many consider. Living life on the ARK, experiencing the weather and the ecosystem, you're at risk. Increasing fortitude will help provide some resistance from the elements, as well as provide you with crucial resistance from torpor, which we'll talk about later on. Fortitude is increased by 1 for each point that you spend. Crafting speed. This is a unique stat not seen in many games. This will allow survivors the opportunity to craft quicker. At first glance, you might think it's not as useful as the others. However, you might end up in a pinch where you have seconds to live and you really need to make a bow. These points spent in crafting will definitely make all the difference between a kill or be killed. It's also a fun trait to consider having on servers where you just want to build as quickly as possible and make many grand structures. Torpor, also known as torpidity, is a stat which you'll not be able to increase. However, it is incredibly useful and very important to watch your levels of torpor. It is used to monitor whether your character becomes unconscious and how long it stays unconscious for. When you have a high amount of torpor, you'll be knocked out and you'll have to wait for it to decrease before you can function again, although it decreases at a fairly rapid rate. As mentioned before, fortitude provides resistance to torpor in the sense that weapons, tools, or consumables may not provide as much. Torpor is a key element when knocking out players and dinosaurs. If you find that your torpor is increasing, you better consider gobbling some stim berries or some other stimulant otherwise, or find yourself potentially in grave danger. And as for engram points, this paragraph, as you'll see on screen right now, goes ahead and describes it pretty much as blueprints in other games. Engram points can be spent to, learn how to craft things like weapons, building structures, saddles, signs, crops, pipes, fridges, turrets, flares, parachutes, notes. You get the idea. So engram points are kind of like blueprints that you would find in, say, Rust, or the ability to learn how to unlock things in, say, H1Z1 by combining different items. This is just their unique way of doing it, and it's really cool. And the very last thing is, what about the alpha? The alpha is still currently ongoing and receiving a lot of feedback. We'll be recruiting more candidates, so keep an eye on your emails. Be sure to check the pinned topic and general discussion for more details. Thank you for tuning into this week's ARK Digest. I hope you enjoyed it, and wishing you all the best. Your friendly neighborhood community manager, Jat. Once again, Jat, thank you so much for this information. I know those of us who are very excited for ARK really appreciates that you put so much work into these community messages with so much transparency. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. So anyways, guys, as for all the things I mentioned, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on them in the description. I thought that a lot of them were really cool when it was describing some of the water features, like being able to ride your dinosaurs through the water, but they might drown, and you got to be careful because you might end up in the mouth of another croc or something like that. Which leads me into the next segue, which is the new dinosaurs that they actually posted over social media and on the community forums. All right, so here is the first new dinosaur that they've showed off throughout the last week. It is the Carnotaurus. There we go. And it is basically, it looks to me at first glance, very similar to a T-Rex. It has the same, front legs or arms as a T-Rex, except it has these horns coming out. It says right there that it is a carnivore and it has an aggressive temperament. And then it has a whole bunch of other stats here on screen that if you want, you can go ahead and pause and read. To me, this looks like a dinosaur that you just really don't want to mess around with. It shows in the bottom right-hand corner there, for example, someone mounting it. It is a medium to a large predator, so it's not the size of a T-Rex. It looks to me like it might be a little bit bigger than, like, say, a Utah raptor maybe. The next one is the crocodile. Of course, we all know the crocodile because they're still around today. I believe, now you dinosaur fans can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the only thing still left alive from the dinosaur age. Crocodiles were around when dinosaurs were around, and they've still been around. I could be wrong about that, but that's what that's what I was known to believe. It is a carnivore, and its temperament is patient. So, they watch you with those eyes. They keep their eyes above the water, and they're like, when you gonna slip up, man? And then, bam, you're dead. All right, so the next one is the Argentavis or Argentavis. It is obviously a large bird type, like vulture. It is rideable or flyable. It apparently is a little slower than the other flyable birds in the game. However, it has a lot more stamina and can fly for 3 times the distance. And it says here its temperament is short-tempered, so you really don't want to mess with them. It's probably going to be really tough to even tame one of these, I would assume, if it's very short-tempered. So it looks really cool. I'm loving how they're showing all these the different flying ones, because you don't get to see those very often in survival games. Now the next one is the Ankylosaurus, I believe is the pronunciation. It is a herbivore, actually, which is surprising. I mean, not surprising, because there's lots of herbivores, especially back then, but it doesn't look like a herbivore. It looks like something that would really mess you up, and it probably actually will, but it just doesn't want to. It wants to eat leaves, but it'll mess you up. I'm assuming this is not a tameable creature, because I don't think it would be very fun riding on the back of that. However, it is very cool looking, and I would love to see this just walking around in the ecosystem. And the very last one here, guys, is the Utah raptor, or other known as a raptor. It is obviously rideable. You can see the saddle there. Its temperament is aggressive. It's a carnivore, so you can tell it just really wants to eat you. It is a very fast creature as well. It's going to be probably one of the prime dinosaurs you're going to see around the ecosystem, people riding, because of that speed that you're going to get from it. The fact that it has an aggressive temperament, it's going to want to attack people. It's not just going to be force, it's going to want to. It's going to be like, there's a guy, let's go kill him. All right, guys, well, that's going to be the end of today's ARK Digest recap. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, if you did, if you could smash that like button. I'm going to be releasing another ARK, just kind of like talking about ARK specifically on my channel video sometime soon, to let you guys know how my upload schedule is going to be for ARK. It's going to be at least daily uploads, but I'm thinking I'm going to be uploading 2 a day, so let me know how you guys would like to see that as well. I'm just thinking that there's so much to do in the game, and since YouTube videos are typically only about 20 to 30 minutes long, it's just going to take so long to cover everything in this game, so I figured maybe 2 videos a day would be cool. Maybe you guys would like to see that. If it's going to be too much, I'm not sure, let me know. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, subscribe for all the ARK content you're going to ever want to see, because I am so invested into this game. Like, this game is going to be my life for the next little bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I love your faces. Bye-bye.